Story 1. The Roommate I Never Had. It was supposed to be the start of a new chapter, a college apartment, finally free from the chaos of dormitory life. 4 friends moved in together, eager for the independence and camaraderie that came with their new space. The apartment itself was nothing remarkable. 2 bedrooms, a modest living room overlooking the parking lot, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of linoleum and old coffee. Yet from the very first night, something felt off. They brushed it aside, attributing the unease to nerves or the echoes of past tenants. But as the days wore on, the feeling only grew. At first, it was small things. A textbook left on the counter would be found on a different shelf. The bathroom door, always closed for privacy, would swing open in the middle of the night. The 4 roommates, Emma, Daniel, Priya, and Marcus, would occasionally joke about their 5th roommate, blaming the oddities on each other's forgetfulness. But privately, each was sure they hadn't moved the shoes left by the door, or the keys that migrated from the coffee table to the kitchen sink. One evening, Emma returned after her late shift to an apartment bathed in darkness. She paused at the threshold, the sound of footsteps echoing faintly down the hallway. Assuming Daniel was up late studying, she called out his name. Silence. She walked slowly toward her room, passing Daniel's door, closed, with the light off. Priya and Marcus's room was also dark. The footsteps stopped. Emma shrugged it off, but as she slipped into bed, she heard the distinct sound of someone walking slowly in the hallway. She texted the group chat, asking if anyone was home. 3 replies came, each confirming they were still out. Her heart thudded. She locked her door and pressed her ear to the wood, straining for any sound. Nothing. She barely slept, and in the morning, her friends dismissed it as an overactive imagination. But the incidents escalated. The roommates began to notice doors opening and closing at odd hours, sometimes when the apartment was empty. Emma would leave her phone charging on the kitchen counter, only to find it unplugged and placed on the table. Marcus heard hushed whispers late at night, indistinct and fleeting, never loud enough to make out words. Priya swore she saw shadows move in the reflection of the living room window when no one else was home. One weekend, Daniel decided to test a theory. He left his room, locked the apartment door behind him, and placed a slip of paper under the threshold. He texted his roommates, letting them know the apartment would be empty for the day. When he returned hours later, the paper was gone. The door was still locked, and his roommates hadn't been home. Then came the night none of them would forget. The 4 roommates were gathered in the living room, watching movies and sharing snacks. It was late, the building quiet. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, heavy, deliberate. The group exchanged nervous glances. Marcus stood, grabbing a flashlight, and crept toward the hallway. The footsteps stopped. He swung the beam of light down the corridor. Nothing. He moved to the front door and found it locked, the chain still in place. He checked the windows, secure, with no sign of forced entry. They searched the apartment top to bottom, finding nothing amiss except for one thing. In Daniel's room, his desk chair had been turned to face the wall, and a single sheet of paper lay on the seat. Scrawled across it in shaky handwriting were the words, "I hear you too." After that night, the roommates could no longer ignore the feeling that they were never truly alone. They spoke to the landlord about the strange occurrences, but he dismissed their concerns, insisting the building was safe. They considered moving out, but the expense and hassle seemed daunting. Instead, they made a pact. No one would be left alone in the apartment, and they would keep the doors and windows locked at all times. The phenomena continued. Doors would open by themselves, footsteps would echo in empty rooms, and objects would move when no one was looking. The sense of being watched became overwhelming, a constant pressure in the air. Emma began to sleep with the lights on. Priya started leaving small offerings, coins, bits of food, in the corners of the apartment, hoping to appease whatever shared their space. They never discovered the truth behind the disturbances. Some believed it was the spirit of a previous tenant. Others thought it was a trick of the mind, amplified by fear and suggestion. But one thing was certain. In that apartment, there was always someone, or something else. The fifth roommate remained, unseen and silent, a presence lurking in the shadows, listening, waiting, and moving just out of sight. Story 2, The Stranger in the Elevator. The night shift was never easy, but for Aaron, it had become a routine. He worked as a cleaner in a downtown office building, clocking in after midnight when the halls were deserted and the city hummed with distant life. He liked the solitude, the quiet broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional creak of settling concrete. It was a job that suited him, lonely, yet peaceful. On a Wednesday night, Aaron finished his rounds on the 12th floor. He loaded his supplies onto his cart and pressed the call button for the elevator, yawning as he waited. The doors slid open with a soft chime, and he wheeled his cart inside. As the doors began to close, a hand shot out, stopping them. A man stepped in, a stranger, tall and pale, dressed in a suit that seemed a size too small. His smile was wide, almost unnaturally so, and his eyes never quite met Aaron's. Aaron nodded politely and pressed the lobby button. The man leaned against the wall, hands folded in front of him, still smiling. At first, Aaron ignored him, focusing on his phone and the hum of the elevator. But as they descended, he became aware of a faint whispering, soft, rapid, and indecipherable. He glanced over and saw the man's lips moving. The smile remained, stretched wide across his face. The elevator slowed as it reached the 6th floor. The doors stayed closed. The lights overhead flickered. Aaron's heart quickened. He pressed the door open button, but nothing happened. The man's whispering grew louder, a hiss of words just beyond comprehension. Aaron tried to catch a phrase, but it was like listening to wind skittering across broken glass. Suddenly, the man turned to him, locking eyes. "Do you believe in fate?" he whispered. His voice was thin, almost childlike. Aaron recoiled slightly, unsure how to respond. I guess, he stammered, searching for something to say. The man's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too many, too sharp. "We're meant to meet tonight," he whispered. "This is your moment." Aaron pressed the emergency call button, heart pounding. The intercom crackled to life, but the man reached over and pressed the button again, silencing it. The elevator lurched, dropping suddenly before coming to a halt between floors. The lights dimmed. The stranger moved closer, so close Aaron could smell his breath, cold and metallic. The whispering resumed, now louder, filling the small space with a chorus of voices. Aaron pressed himself against the wall, clutching his phone. He tried to call for help, but the screen flickered, refusing to connect. The man leaned in, his breath tickling Aaron's ear. "You're afraid," he hissed. Everyone is, at first. Aaron thought of the stories he'd heard, urban legends about night workers encountering things best left unseen. He tried to steady his breathing, refusing to give in to panic. Suddenly, the elevator jolted, the lights blazed back to life, and the doors slid open onto the lobby. The man stepped back, his smile fading. He bowed his head politely, then strode out into the darkness, vanishing before Aaron could follow. Shaking, Aaron wheeled his cart into the lobby, forcing himself to breathe. He glanced back at the elevator, half expecting to see the man's face peering back at him. But the car was empty, the doors standing open. He reported the incident to security, but they found nothing. No record of a passenger matching the man's description, no sign of tampering with the elevator. Aaron finished his shift in a daze, haunted by the memory of the stranger's smile and the whispering that echoed in his mind. For weeks afterward, every time he rode the elevator, he felt a cold dread settle over him. He never saw the man again, but sometimes, late at night, he would hear faint whispers in the empty halls, soft, urgent, and chilling. He never forgot the stranger in the elevator, nor the feeling that in some way their meeting had not been by chance.